Welcome all of you. This is Kanishk with the first chapter of World History Paper 1 GS for the UPSC. And here we all are starting today with the first module, that is Imperialism and Colonialism. Before we start the module, there are certain prerequisites that you need to know. Imperialism cannot be understood in isolation. It's not a very segregated event that you can understand. It's not something which happened on its own. Several stuffs preceded imperialism. There were several events that happened before imperialism. And before imperialism is relatively a modern phenomenon. It happened in modern Europe. But we need to know a bit about medieval Europe before we plug into imperialism. When I say medieval Europe, the world remembers medieval Europe as for its dark ages. Europe was known for its dark ages during medieval era. Now there are reasons for it. Europe as you see today was not always the way it is today. Okay, there were reasons for it. Now you see a very cosmopolitan, a very developed, high on several indexes, especially the HDI, the per capita, whatever good things that you hear about Europe. It was not always like that. Europe has fought for 100 years among itself. Okay, and before and dark ages kya tha? Dark ages refers to the medieval century because church interfered into almost all walks of life. When I say church, it means the religion, mainly the Roman Catholics. So they interfered into almost all walks of life: polity, society, family, economy, science and technology. You cannot act out of church. You have to act according to the church. So when Galileo Galilei said that the earth revolves around the sun, church made him apologize publicly that no, it's the other way around. समझ रहे हो आप? Church was very much status quoist. What do you mean by status quo? Someone who likes the existing situation. Like for example, if there is a change in pattern of UPSC exam, there are people who start, cribbing at Mukherjee Nagar Patra. There are reasons for it because everyone is status quoist. We all favor the situation as it is because we fear what the future might hold for us. There are insecurities within. There are inherent insecurities within those who favor change. So that was the exact situation with church. They were status quoist. Status quo का मतलब होता है जैसा चल रहा है वैसे चलने दो, नया कुछ नहीं होना चाहिए. Okay, and because of this, there was it was a more of a stagnant society because ideas, innovations, improvisation, these things could not just happen here in Europe during medieval era. But then something happened, and that something is known as Renaissance. This is how you pronounce it, Renaissance. What was Renaissance? It refers to a cultural awakening that happened in Europe, and it affected again the almost all walks of life: science, technology, development, family, polity, modern ideas, the things that we cherish today: liberty, equality, fraternity. They all are offshoots of French Revolution. French Revolution again in turn is inspired by Renaissance. Okay, so people started questioning things. A spirit of inquiry was unleashed among Europe and the Europeans. And then James Watt discovers steam engine. What happens after that? Those places which were hitherto inaccessible became accessible to people because the steamers could run on sea. They could conquer the unexplored areas, the land and sea, everything. Okay, and this resulted in a new system. Earlier it was a feudal society which was replaced by a capitalist society. So now we proceed with the formal module. I think I have given you enough introduction here. This is what it says. From 9th to 16th century, military conflicts were frequent as there was no unifying political force. There was there was not a single, not one single political force. There were many feudal chiefs over there, small kingdoms fighting among themselves. And social organization was centered on control of land. Okay, whosoever had more access to land had more control on particularly everything. Church became a major landholder and political power in Europe. Church had a large tract of land under its control. And three orders existed. Orders here refer to the category. Now, try to recall, if you study ancient history, you will study about the Varnashram, not Varnashram, but this Chaturvarna system. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Something similar existed there that was called three orders, which consisted of priests, nobles, and the peasants. Feudalism, we often hear this term. What is feudalism? It refers to the economic, legal, political, and social relationship that existed in Europe in medieval era. Agricultural production was based on the relationship between lord and the peasant. Lord means the master of the land, peasant is the one who is working on it. So again, you see, peasant is not the possessor of land, he is a worker on the land. Peasants performed labor services for lords, and lords provided military protection. Lords here strictly refer to the feudal lords. So again, lords provided military protection and also had extensive judicial control over peasants. So apart from ensuring the safety of the peasant, they could also decide any conflict which happened between them. So वो दोनों काम करते थे, executive भी थे और judiciary भी थे. All powers were concentrated in the feudal lords. So that is why it is there in the last line that feudalism went beyond economic to control the social and political aspects of life too. It was not just economic. When you are the judiciary as well, जब आप ही Supreme Court हैं, आप ही military हैं, आप ही मालिक हैं, then you will start controlling almost everything, not only economic, social and political as well. So here you see the peasant is at the receiving end, he is at the mercy of his feudal lord. This is the feudal pyramid. Peasant or serf is at the bottom of the pyramid. Serf is the word for peasant who is worked for lords in exchange for production, as we saw earlier. On above him, the hierarchy, if you see, there are vassals or knights, elite military members. Okay, above them are lords who have been appointed by the kings. Okay, so you see a pyramidal structure. Okay, and like all the pyramids, the base is broad and the top is just one person is sitting. Like, of course, almost all modern organizations also have a pyramidal structure. CEO एक होता है, okay, workers खूब सारे होते हैं, फिर managers होते हैं, फिर project managers होते हैं, so on and so forth. तो हर जगह ये hierarchy follow होती है, वही उस समय हो रही थी. Feudal pyramid है ये. But this was quite exploitative in nature, as we will see later on. Now, roots of feudalism can be traced to Roman Empire and during the French king Charlemagne. I don't know if I have pronounced it correctly or not. Someone who has a better command on French would be able to pronounce it. However, that's the spelling. 742 to 814 AD. It was established in the larger parts of Europe. It was firmly established in large parts of Europe in 11th century. So by 11th century, feudalism was deep rooted in Europe. Dark Ages, the reference is made here to the scientific and technological stagnation that happened in Europe at that time. Now the Renaissance, era of enlightenment, where the status quo was questioned by a spirit of inquiry, as we discussed earlier. The private and public sphere of life became separate. Public sphere was confined to the area of government and of formal religion. Private sphere was confined to family and personal religion. Okay, so now the individual was not only a member of one of the three orders, he was a person in his own right. Like, remember the three orders: priest, nobles and peasants. So now you are not a peasant. जैसे मैं आप सबको बोलूं कि you all are UPSC aspirants and I am a teacher. So no, we all have our personal identities as well, apart from these common identities. I am Kanishk and you are whatever your name is. So now this thing happens in Europe after the advent of Renaissance. Now students often ask me, when did Renaissance happen? The answer is, it did not happen in a day. It's not an event. It's an event, okay? It's not a one-day phenomena. It went on and on and on, and it had its effect until very late. We shall see all these things very soon. Industrial Revolution happened, and this term was first used by Frederick Engels. You remember this name, and we are doing Marxism in next module. We'll remember Engels as well, and Georges Michelet. 1780 to 1850, the transformation of industry and economy in Britain. And they had far-reaching effects in Britain, and some similar changes occurred in Europe and America later on. Rapid growth happened. Okay, there was a rapid growth in cotton products and industries, coal mining, roads, canals, foreign trade. No, this rapid growth was happening because people wanted to make more money. Okay, they wanted to make more money. Capitalists who were the owners of the industries, they wanted more money. And how do you make more money? There are just two methods. All other methods revolve around these two methods. Please remember that. Either you increase your revenue or you cut your cost. आप कुछ भी उपाय लगा लीजिए, इसी दोनों उपाय के आसपास घूमेगा. Either you increase your revenue or you decrease your cost. So here you see rapid growth because they are trying to increase their production so that their sales increases, their revenue increases. This is the question that you had in UPSC 2016 on your screen. Why did the Industrial Revolution first occur in England? Discuss the quality of life of the people there during the industrialization. How does it compare with that in India at present? Now, except for the last part, I'll discuss the last part as well. But see, first we'll focus on the first part. Here's the answer. Britain was politically stable since 7th century. England, Wales, and Scotland were ruled by one monarchy. Later on, something more comes into here. Ireland becomes a part. And there was a single currency and a single market that was not fragmented by local authorities through taxes, which means that there was no provincial governments which had their own taxes. So you see, one monarch from 7th century, which means political unification, single currency, single market, which means economic integration. And 18th century England witnessed agricultural revolution. The big landlords bought small farms and created very large estates to increase production. Now, one thing very necessary for increasing agricultural production is huge tracts of land. You cannot have a small piece of land and you cannot talk about green revolution. Okay, so you need to integrate, pool land. Okay, how it is done, that we will see later on. So landless farmer, because their small tracts were taken by the big landlords to create large estates in order to increase the production. So landless farmer was forced to search for jobs elsewhere because उनका लैंड ले लिया गया, उसको बड़े लैंड में सब लैंड को जोड़ दिया गया और बड़े लैंड का मालिक है बड़ा इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट जो है, बिग लैंडलॉर्ड जो है, वही फ्यूडल लॉर्ड जो है. तो where will this landless farmer go? He has to survive, he has to earn a living. He moves to the factory, he becomes a worker. किसान से वो वर्कर बन गया. And about the later part, how does it compare with that in India at present? About the question, no need to say that yeah something similar exists in India right now. No, yeah, but थोड़ा सा आपको similarity और dissimilarity दोनों देख सकती है. Today we have bodies that regulate the Indian agriculture. Today we have several acts. We can debate the efficacy of those acts, but provisions are there. At that time in England there were no provisions at all. So it's not comparable. Some effects are comparable. Let us restrict ourselves to the first part of this question because that is what we are going to discuss in this module. 1750 to 1800, 19 European cities doubled their population. Now, how do cities double their population? When people migrate to these places. It's not like they start producing more because people migrate to these places. Within 50 years, it cannot be reproduction. It can be only migration. And 11 of them were in Britain. And London was the center of triangular network that drew in England, Africa, and West Indies. So it became a trade hotbed. Good networks of rivers in England helped in movement of goods. Now, England is, if you see the map, it is well connected through the rivers. And still till date, the bulk of trade happens through sea. Most voluminous trade is carried through waters, not through roads, not through airlines, through sea. So England had that benefit of a good connection through sea, through the rivers and seas and water. And by 1820s, there were over 600 banks who met the financial requirements of the industries. So when industries come, they need loans, they need credit. Who will provide the credit? Of course, it will come from the bank. So there were 600 banks in England. Coal, iron ore, copper, tin, everything was available in England. And what they wanted, EIC is the East India Company, they imported raw cotton from India. Okay. Steam power. Steam power provided pressure at high temperature that enabled the use of a broad range of machines. James Watt steam engine replaced the hydraulic power, and machines became more efficient. It helps in transportation, it helped in industries, in factories as well. So this is what imperialism was: extending control or rule by a country over the socio-economic and political life of areas outside its own borders, and through military operations or colonialism. Colonialism was the practice and imperialism was the idea. How to become an imperial country? Make colonies outside your own country. And first phase started in 16th century, lasted till 18th century. India, China, two big land masses were enslaved by the imperial powers. Now, why it happened? Why industrial imperialism happened? How it succeeded? Because industrial revolution has created a wide range of demand. You need raw materials for a factory. Where to get raw materials from? Come to Asia, come to Africa. Again, nascent stage of capitalism was exploitative in nature. Today we have a worker union. Today we have so much provisions for the employees. There was nothing like that. Workers used to work in 12 to 15 hours shift. They used to live in very filthy, dirty localities. Okay. So that stage of capitalism was exploitative in nature. Worker को जितना exploit कर सकते हो उसको करो. Then the protectionist policy followed by Europe. You know what was this protectionist policy? Like, suppose there are two countries, Spain and England, both are in Europe. Spain is putting an excise duty on the goods that are coming from England. So what will happen to that good when it enters the leaves the English border and enters the Spanish border? The price will increase. So they could not trade among themselves because every country had erected a tariff. Okay, that was the protectionist policy. So they have to look for new markets. Europe में नहीं कर सकते थे, हर किसी ने tariff barriers लगा रखे थे. So they started the imperial domination of Africa and Asia. Now these capital was invested in Asia and Africa, and the one who invested the capital was the mother country. Like Britain was the mother country, India was the host country. That was done to promote industries that would export from here. You know, British has beautifully summed it up. The resources were carried from the bank of Ganges to the bank of Thames. Thames is a river in England. So political domination became necessary for investment, and that's how Morocco becomes French Morocco. After an appeal by French investor to their government, French investors came to this Morocco, and they wanted their government to intervene. So they asked them that please intervene here militarily so that we get control over here. Transport and communication helped. Rails were made. Okay, railways were, Gandhi was dead against railways because he thought that it helps in draining the countryside of its resources. Rails and roads were built by the cheap labor of the conquered country. So from the hinterlands of India, resources were put into malgadis. They were brought to the coastal areas, and from coastal areas they were transported on ship to the England. Then chauvinism or extreme nationalism. Prachanda Rashtravad. My own country, right or wrong. Nations developed myths about their superiority. Okay, many people have this myth about their superiority. So nations had this feeling, and having more colony meant more power and more prestige. If I have, it became a status symbol. जैसे अभी status symbol क्या है? आपके पास कुछ assets हैं या नहीं है, right? If you own maybe a better phone, a better system, how big house you live in, how big a car you drive, these are the measurement of power and prestige as of now. At that time, when it was applied to country, how many colonies do you have? Imperialism was in, it was a fashion. Okay, it was a fashion. And colonized people were often inducted in the army of the imperial country. So these people also helped militarily. You conquer a country, you imperially dominate that country, and you induct those people, the conquered people, into your own army. Civilizing Mission. Look at your screen. Rudyard Kipling, what he says: share the white man's burden, fellow countrymen. He's asking his countrymen, like, what is the white man's burden? Because the color of your skin is white, so all the non-whites are inferior to you. Color matters, content does not. Okay, under this white man's burden. Desmond Tutu, the guy on your screen, see what he says. When the missionaries came to Africa, they had the Bible and we had the land. They asked us to pray with eyes closed. When we opened our eyes, we had the Bible and they had the land. I mean, can you sum it up more appropriately? Julius Ferry, superior races have the duty of civilizing the inferior races. President McKinley of USA, this was the remark he made on Philippines. There was nothing left to do but to take them all and to educate the Filipinos and uplift and civilize and Christianize them as our fellow men for whom Christ also died. Two things are here. One, you are non-white. Second, you are not a Christian. So you are unevolved. The color of your skin cannot be changed, but your religion can be changed. Okay. So these were the things that motivated him. They had no sense of guilt because they thought that they are doing the right thing. They are superior. As I told you, they had mythical superiority complex. Okay. Explorers and adventurers. They went to the unknown land and came back with vital information. Like an explorer comes from England to maybe some village in India. He goes back with a detailed report. And he says there to his government officers that this village is having a war with this village, so we can go there. This village is rich in this very resource. We can go and pit one against the other, the one village chief against the other. This is what they did. They brought reports with opportunities for trade. One or two or a group came, maybe a dozen people came, and then they said that there are huge coal reserves lying in Ramgarh and Ranchi in Jharkhand. Earlier it was Bihar. In Dhanbad, coal mines are there. Bauxite is there in Jamshedpur. And when this news went abroad, a trading post was created by the foreigners. And then they claimed that this territory is our. Trading post was often followed by a military post. Okay. So the explorers and adventurers had their role to play, especially in annexation of Africa. China. China today is one of the, can I say, the most powerful country. In fact, there was an Economist article on this, that China, when Xi Jinping is the most powerful man in the world today, the president of China. But see, the petty condition of China at that time. It was attacked by Britain after a British ship with opium was seized by Chinese. Now, we need to know about this. China used to export silk and other raw materials and other even finished goods to England. And there was a huge market in England for Chinese goods. Britain could not find any market in China for their goods. So the balance of trade was in the favor of Chinese. English were losing. So English could not tolerate this. They started smuggling opium into China, and that opium was produced in India. Okay. So of course, opium was serving profits to British at the cost of Chinese mental and physical health. So one of the Chinese officer seized a ship with opium. Britain declares it an act of war, attacks China, defeats China, and then opens 5 port cities for British traders, and also makes them pay war damage. Now, earlier before this war, there was 1 port city for British in China. Now there are 5 port cities. Britain and France together attack China on the pretext that a French missionary has been murdered in China. China was forced to grant more privileges to its conqueror. Now they imposed extraterritorial rights. on China. A provision later on emulated by all major imperial powers. What happens here that this under this territory we have extra powers. Britain has extra power in maybe Beijing city. Okay, we will do what we want. No one should interfere with us. Now Japan sees their opportunity and they try to increase their influence over Korea, which was under China at that time. China resents. There's a war. Japan is defeat China, and China is forced to give Formosa and other islands to Japan along with $150 million as the war damage. So कितनी country हो गई? Britain, France. Now here comes Japan. Now see. Now these countries are giving loans. So France, Britain, and Russia and Germany are giving loans to China. They're giving loans saying that you have to pay huge war damage. How will you manage? So please take loan. आपको पता है हर लोन के साथ एक collateral होता है. So what is the collateral here? That this area belongs to me. I have given you a loan. So Russia says that this area is mine. Germany says that area is mine. So on and so forth. Every country divided China into a sphere of influence. Now China was reduced to the status of an international colony and it was not directly controlled by any country. This is known as the cutting of the Chinese melon. Okay, see how many countries are there. France, Britain, Russia, and Germany are into China. They have divided China into their respective spheres of influence. And this is known as cutting of the Chinese melon. Here comes Uncle Sam, the big brother. Now, how could USA wait for long? Okay, यूएसए की कहानी हम बाद में देखेंगे कि यूएसए क्या करता है जब वो इंडिपेंडेंट हो जाता है. बट अब वो इंडिपेंडेंट हो चुका है. इंडिपेंडेंट होने के पहले की कहानी हम बाद में देखेंगे. अमेरिकन रिवॉल्यूशन एंड द अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर. सो यूएसए थिंक्स दैट चाइना इज everyone is looting China and I'm waiting here. So now Uncle Sam is a derogatory slang used in IR for USA. Don't write this answer sheet. Don't refer to USA as Uncle Sam or Big Brother. Call it USA. And it comes with the Me Too or the open door policy. Now America fears that China would be lost in exclusive sphere of influence of different European countries. So they suggest open door policy or Me Too policy. All countries will have equal rights to trade anywhere in China is what they say. And Britain supports USA here because they wanted to check the increasing influence of Japan and Russia in China. So Britain supports America. And this is how the complete cutting of the Chinese melon happens. Now USA also is here. Africa. Last quarter of 19th century, European control of Africa was limited to 1/5 of the continent. And within the next few years, entire Africa was partitioned among the Europeans. They started something very barbaric and inhumane, that was the slave trade. It was started by Portuguese and it continued till middle of 19th century. We'll see what it was. See the slave trade routes. Here is a map on your screen. See, look at this carefully. There are different routes. The arrows have been made here. So slaves are carried through water to South America and North America from Africa for different purpose. Somewhere for tobacco plantation, somewhere for coffee, cotton, sugar, mining, and at times for rice. And these journeys were very inhuman journeys. Most of the slaves died in the ship itself because a large number of slaves were made to, उनको ठूंस देते थे ships में, unhygienic conditions में. वो आधे तो मर जाते थे रास्ते में ही, इसी में मर जाते थे. Millions of Africans were uprooted from their homes and many were killed. Extreme brutalities were inflicted on those who tried to escape. Anyone who killed a running slave was rewarded by the government. Now there are, pictures of Europeans standing with the heads of Africans. उनके सर काट के दीवार में लगा देते थे और उसके साथ अपनी फोटो खिंचवाते थे. I killed a running slave. That was something that they cherished. And the interiors of Africa was unknown to the Europeans until middle of the 19th century, but gradually it was occupied. They were initially confined to the coastal areas. By the middle of 19th century, they occupied the interiors of Africa as well. Africans could not stand against the Europeans because they had no resources to fight the Europeans. There were conflicts within African states. The same thing, India वाली हालत थी. Everyone was fighting among themselves, so the Europeans came and conquered it. And African rulers signed a treaty with an European country to seek its help, and they made it a protectorate. When a treaty was signed with an European power, that African part became a protectorate of the European power, which means that you cannot take your independent decisions. The European will influence your decision now. ये आप मॉडर्न इंडिया में भी देखेंगे. Something similar they do with the Indians as well. West and Central Africa, England, USA, and Belgium occupied Congo, France occupied Senegal, Ivory Coast, French Guiana, Germany occupied Togoland, Cameroon, England and Germany agreed to partition Angola and Mozambique between themselves. Spain took over Rio de Oro and Spanish Guiana. Portugal had Angola and Portuguese Guiana. Note down these names. Don't try to locate them on map. They don't exist in their current name and boundaries. When you are asked how Africa was conquered, you can mention these points. South Africa, there was a guy called Cecil Rhodes. इसी के नाम पे रोड स्कॉलरशिप चलती है. आज भी इंडिया से बहुत स्टूडेंट उसको अवेल करते हैं. He came to South Africa in 1870 and made lots of money from mining diamond and gold. Now, mine भी क्या कर रहा है तो diamond और gold, तो पैसा तो आएगा ही आएगा. And he is regarded as a philanthropist. Who is a philanthropist? जो humanity के लिए काम करता है, like Bill Gates, okay? But this guy Cecil Rhodes was more of an empire builder and a profiteer, okay? And he wanted to see the might of England everywhere in the world. He even said that philanthropy plus 10% is a good deal. 10% here refers to the commission. As I have written here that he was a profiteer also. And they occupy Rhodesia, Swaziland, Basutoland, Bechuanaland, etc. East Africa. It was not occupied until 1884, except for the Portuguese possession of Mozambique. Later on, France got Madagascar. East Africa was divided between Germany and England. Uganda and Mozambique became a British protectorate. So you see, every part, entire Europe is plunging on the Africa. They are just plundering Africa, annexing every part of Africa. North Africa. It was conquered by France in 1830, but it took them 40 more years to consolidate consolidate their rule over Algeria, because they were resisting. There were fights. Now France and England, they agreed between themselves. France and Egypt to England, बिना colonies को involve किए लोग आपस में decision ले लेते थे. Agreement between France and England gave Morocco to France and Egypt to England, and Morocco and Egypt were not informed. Egypt was a part of Turkish Empire, and a French company got permission from Pasha. Pasha was the governor of Egypt, to build a canal across the Isthmus of Suez. We'll see this during First World War also, this Suez wala stuff. For the moment, you just need to know this. British bought shares of this canal to keep the route to India safe. See, keep the route to India safe. By this time, India was occupied. 1857 का revolt हो चुका है. EIC की जगह British crown आ चुका है. And इस तरफ और कोई ना आ जाए, इस रूट को और कोई यूज करके इंडिया ना पहुंच जाए. That's why they are, keeping the canal under their control. So at times, colonies were procured to keep the existing colonies safe. आप एक कॉलोनी इसलिए ले रहे हैं ताकि आपकी बड़ी कॉलोनी की तरफ कोई बुरी नजर ना डाले. So you see, it was a perpetual process. ये कभी खत्म ही नहीं होगा फिर तो. Okay, in 1882 there was a revolt in Egypt against Anglo-French rule, and British intervened and took control of Egypt. And this is the question that they asked in 2013. UPSC asked this question. Africa was chopped into states artificially created by accident of European competition. All you need to do is to write what we have seen here. European competition क्या है? हर यूरोपियन कंट्री वहां पे अपना रूल जा रही है, और दे आर जो जिसके हाथ लग रहा है उसको कॉन्कर कर रही है. ओके, एनालाइज. तो एनालाइज आप थोड़ा सा इसमें ये बता देंगे कि बिकॉज दे वांटेड, इंपीरियलिज्म का थोड़ा सा पर्पस यहाँ बताना पड़ेगा 50-60 वर्ड्स में, फर्स्ट पैरा में, that it created a demand for raw materials. They wanted raw materials, and then they wanted to dump their finished products also. Okay, तो ये दो कराना 50-60 वर्ड्स में बताओगे और फिर पूरा उन एरियाज पे आ जाओगे. which country annexed which part of Africa. What was the effect? By 1914, few countries were controlling the entire globe, and the local industry and the economy of these countries were shattered by their imperial masters. Agricultural pattern was changed. Remember Indigo movement in Champaran, one of the initial hits of Gandhi. Why it happened? Because the villagers in Champaran refused to grow indigo. Indigo was a cash crop which British needed for their cloth mills. उनको कपड़े ब्लू करने होते थे. Farmers were not interested, they were forced to do that. तो एग्रीकल्चर पैटर्न को शिफ्ट. चाय इंडिया की ड्रिंक नहीं है. यहाँ तो गर्मी पड़ती है. वी आर अ हॉट कंट्री. वी यूज्ड टू हैव छाछ, नींबू पानी, लस्सी, मिल्क, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. बट आज देखिए चाय की क्या स्थिति है भारत में. नहीं मिले तो लोगों को बहुत ज्यादा परेशानी हो जाती है. सो ये सब चीज की आदत लगवाई गई और ये पैटर्न चेंज किया गया. ओके, एग्रीकल्चरल पैटर्न चेंज किया गया to meet the requirement of their imperial master, and there was a naked plunder of the natural resources. Racial arrogance and discrimination was another hallmark of imperialism. So that is all I have for today. I would welcome all your questions. This is the first chapter, and Kanishk signing off for today. Take good care. Good night. आप लोग अपने अपने प्रश्न पूछ सकते हैं. आप please ask your questions, my dear students. Lipika has a question, sir. Why did slave transfer from Africa to South and North America? Because there were plantations there. Okay, उस मैप में आप देखोगे ना लिपिका, ये सारा कुछ YouTube पे आएगा, तो आप उस मैप को देखना जो मैंने मैप डाला है. वहां पर दिखाया गया कि किस जगह पे कौन सा क्रॉप लगाया जा रहा था. An African slave was considered good to work on these fields. There are reasons for it. Why not a European worker? Because European worker was also enlightened. उसने भी रेनेसां का फायदा उसको हुआ था. And he was protected by European laws. You cannot exploit a European worker. So African को तो कोई नहीं उस बचा रहा है ना, इसलिए. So they were made to work like animals on these fields. Okay. Ankita has a question. Can you please explain cutting of Chinese whale? Ankita, like, see, first Britain goes to China and annexes some part. France again comes. Then Japan comes. They extend loans to China and as a collateral take some part of annex some part of China. Then USA comes. USA says that me too or open door policy, that please don't reserve. Please make everyone do free trade in China. So China was occupied by 4 to 5 colonial powers within their sphere of influences. Like 100 kilometers belong to USA, 100 to 200 kilometers belong to England, 200 to 300 kilometers belongs to Japan. तो ऐसे ऐसे जो काट दिया ना चाइना को, इट इज कॉल्ड कटिंग ऑफ द चाइनीज मेलन. मेलन क्या होता है? तरबूज होता है. दिस इज द कटिंग ऑफ चाइनीज मेलन. इट वाज रिड्यूस्ड टू द स्टेटस ऑफ एन इंपीरियलिस्ट international colony. We have a question here. Swati is asking, sir, how imperialism was of a different nature than what the mercantilist imperialism. So I think what is mercantilist imperialism? Can you tell me? Swati? See, mercantilist imperialism is a part of imperialism itself. मर्केंटिलिज्म इंग्लैंड अमेरिका में करेगा, अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन में इसको देखेंगे दैट वहां पे ऐसे स्लेव ट्रेड नहीं होगा, वहां से लोगों को पकड़ के नहीं ले जाएंगे, वहां पे सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक प्रॉफिट देखा जाएगा। वो जब आप अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन करोगे तब इसको समझोगे, अभी आप बस आप इतना समझो कि इंपीरियलिज्म हो रहा है। मर्केंटिलिस्ट इंपीरियलिज्म स्पेशली उस पार्ट के लिए, अमेरिका के लिए। एनीथिंग मोर? एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस? Chirag has a question. Was there any internal disturbance within Europe during imperialism, or were they collectively controlling the world? Initially, they were controlling collectively. Later on, they fight, and that is what gives rise to the First World War, which we shall see. अभी तक तो सब पीसफुली हो रहा है ना। आप देखो चाइना में गए, आराम आराम से अग्रीमेंट करके उसको काट दिया मिलन बना के, ठीक है। इंडिया में आपने मॉडर्न इंडिया में देखा है कैसे सब आए थे, फिर ब्रिटेन ने कैसे सबको साइड लगा, थोड़ा बहुत फाइट हुआ था, वहां से फाइट शुरू हो गई थी, याद है। तो अब इसी कॉलोनियल पोजिशंस को, कॉलोनीज को मेंटेन करने के लिए फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर होगा। ओके, तो शुरू में तो सब यूनानिमस थे, बाद में कंपटीशन इंटेंस हो जाता है, एंड देन दे गो फॉर द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर। आई थिंक वो Lokesh has a question: is imperialism and colonialism same? More same than there are more similarities than differences between the two. imperialism को कैसे करोगे, उसके लिए कॉलोनी बनाना पड़ेगा। ओके, colonialism is the practice, imperialism is the theory. आज क्लास में बताया ना कि सोशलिज्म इज द प्रैक्टिस एंड मार्क्सिज्म इज द थियरी, वही चीज है यहाँ पर, सेम एग्जैक्ट स्टफ। और कुछ बच्चा लोग? There is not much to ponder in this section. The next session will have lots of questions, but I shall not take all your questions because you won't be able to understand if you ask questions in the last session. I will address all your questions when I'll be completing the next session. Next session is on Marxism, and we'll study Karl Marx and its theories, his theories. I don't think there are more questions. If you have any question with regards to this, you can ask me in the office tomorrow or any day. So thanks for bearing with me. See you, I guess, day after tomorrow. Good night. Take good care.